When Parkland was named Florida's safest city last year by an American trade body, not many would have imagined that danger was lurking right there in its alleys. A young man brought the town to a standstill in the early hours of Wednesday when he stormed his own former school and carried out a deadly attack. Here's a report on what happened at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida.
If I don't make it, I love you. This was the message Sarah sent her mother when she heard gunshots at her school in Florida. As the gunshots rang through Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, all hell broke loose.
We were talking to each other, but everyone kept swishing each other, and just everyone was pretty scared, and some people were crying. And just people were trying to comfort each other and saying it was going to be alright, and they were going to get out of here.
This is the 19-year-old who held the school hostage, an institution that he himself went to till last year. As the word spread about the horror that was unleashed in the school, terrified parents rushed to the spot, praying that their kids were safe.
She called me around 2:50, 3 o'clock. She told me that she's in one of the classroom closet area. She always texts to us what's going on, and last day she already escaped from there. She's so happy now, but everything went very bad.
But not everyone was as lucky. 17 people, including both students and staff, were killed in the carnage, planned and executed by a young man identified as Nicholas Cruz, whose digital footprints are nothing short of alarming.
Our investigators have certainly began dissecting social media and looking at the website, and the Nicholas, I think we spell his name Nikolas, Cruz, was the killer. He is in custody, and we've already began to dissect his websites and the things that social media that he was on, and some of the things have come to mind are very, very disturbing.
As the local administration ordered a probe, condolences poured in, with President Trump and the First Lady expressing their shock. But are these words enough? What about the recurring incidents of gun violence in America? What happened in Florida on Wednesday was the 18th such incident in the last 2 months alone. In a country with almost 88 firearms per 100 people and lenient gun laws, how does one ensure such incidents don't occur again? Bureau Report, WION.
And joining me from Parkland, Florida itself is WION's correspondent Steve Mort. Steve, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Has the police shared any more information about the gunman or the victims?
Yes, that's right. Well, we are getting a kind of a picture now building about the suspect, Nicholas Cruz, in this case. Police have been questioning him throughout the night. In fact, overnight here, they searched the home where Nicholas Cruz is believed to have been living for the last few months. And the picture that we're getting is of a person, if you believe the students who have been speaking out about the suspect, was abusive and also a loner. Cruz posted on his Instagram page pictures of guns. He also posted pictures of himself with a bandana over his face and wielding a knife. So clearly somebody, if you believe those pictures to be a representation of him, somebody who was suffering from some kind of mental issues. We understand from the Broward County mayor that Cruz had stopped attending a mental health clinic in this area just fairly recently before he's alleged to have carried out this attack. He's understood to have a fairly troubled life. We did hear from an attorney, a spokesperson for the family just today, saying that his family is shocked to hear about what he's alleged to have done, but that in fact he did have something of a troubled family life. So a picture is building of the suspect in this case. He is in custody, has been transferred to the main jail in Fort Lauderdale. That's the largest city near here, to the county jail, where police are likely to continue questioning him.
Right, and do we know much more about where he was between the time that he was expelled till the last couple of months when he reportedly started living with a friend's family in the area where the school is?
Yes, that's right, and certainly that's something that you know we're getting a picture of. What's interesting to note, I would say here today in this area, as this sort of community tries to get to grips with what's happened here, is there's a neighbouring school just off to my right. There's an elementary school there which has resumed business. We saw children, streams of elementary school children just behind me this morning heading into class. We had crossing guards there helping them cross the street, but as you can see, there still is a large police presence here, so quite a surreal situation with children and their parents having to push past police to get to the elementary school. So life is sort of slowly getting back to normal here, but it's going to take a while. There are grief counsellors on site in this area as well. They're there to help students, faculty, and also relatives of students and faculty who may be affected by this.
All right, Steve Mott there in Parkland, Florida. Thanks very much for bringing us those details from the state itself where this horrific incident has taken place. Remember, police are describing the school shooting in Florida as the second deadliest act of gun violence ever on a U.S. public school campus. Now, in the hours since the horrific scenes unfolded in Parkland, more details have emerged about the shooter himself. Police have identified the gunman as a 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz, a former student at the very same high school. He was expelled for unspecified disciplinary reasons. Now, Cruz has been held on 17 counts of premeditated murder. He surrendered to police after the rampage, armed with an AR-15 rifle and multiple magazines of ammunition. Now, he reportedly bought the rifle sometime in the last year after passing necessary background checks. Now, the former classmates of the gunman have described him as a loner who loved guns, who loved violence. In fact, police officials have called his digital profile as, quote, very, very disturbing, end quote. Now, replete, of course, are those social media profiles with posts of guns and violence. Cruz was reportedly adopted 20 years ago by Linda Cruz, who died in November 2017. He's reportedly been living with a friend's family ever since. That very same family is now cooperating with investigators to find out what exactly went on with this young man. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has now ordered flags at half-mast at all American establishments in honor of the victims. Earlier, he tweeted about the shooter's alleged mental health issues, saying, and I quote, "So many signs that the Florida shooter was mentally disturbed, even expelled from school for bad and erratic behavior." Now, neighbors and classmates knew he was a big problem, must always report such instances to authorities again and again. End quote. And joining me live this evening from New Delhi is Dr. Dipali Kapoor. She's a counseling psychologist at the Apollo Hospital. Dr. Kapoor, good evening. Thank you for speaking with us here at WION. In what we've learned so far about the shooter, do you think there were red flags that were missed?
The flags that we really miss are the ones that they said that he was violent. His schoolmates said that he was violent. So basically, we find that they're dysfunctional families. They come from dysfunctional families. There's sexual abuse. There's sometimes physical and verbal abuse. So some of these are the reasons why we need to catch them fast. We need to see them. We need to be in communication with these children. And I think the thing is that we can catch them. We can catch these red flags, but not all the time.
Fair enough. What role do you think, ma'am, if I can ask you, does social media play in cases like these? Do you see it as an enabling factor and something that's universally worrying? It's not just about the US, perhaps, but also countries like India, where young people are getting more and more online.
Could you repeat that question? I didn't hear that.
I'm asking if you think that social media plays Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
All right. My question is, do you think that social media is an enabling factor when it comes to cases such as these ones?
Yes, it does, in a way, because it glorifies the act. There are people who need attention. There are people who've been rejected. This is one way they find that they can get attention, and it is instant attention. Social media actually brings in, I mean, it has a far reach. So social media does play a real active role in these kind of glorified stories. So I think they need to, I don't know how it can be tackled, but it does play a large role.
Fair enough. What about schools in India, ma'am? There are grief counselors now more and more in some private schools in parts of the country, but public schools is, an entirely different story. Do you think that India too needs to have checks and balances in place, not just at home, but at school as well, to, maybe catch hold of these flags a little earlier on?
It is very important to have connect with the children in school also, but it's rarely happens. So mental health issues really need to be tackled at a warfare kind of a situation, where we can really find out children who are at risk and help them out in these. So counselors do help out. I've been in this field for almost 30 years, and I can say that people do approach you. If you're available, they will be there. And there are signs that you can find out that the child is disturbed. And maybe the teacher should also learn to identify which are the ones that need more help and special care.
All right, Dr. Dipali Kapoor, thank you for joining us this evening and sharing your perspective with us. Just to give our viewers an idea, though, of what's happened in this latest incident. It's only the 18th of shootings that have already been reported on school campuses across the United States in the last 2 months itself. Let's take a look at some of those shootings, beginning with the latest incident at Florida itself, where a former student opened fire, killing 17 people before authorities took him into custody. On the 5th of February, a student was shot at on the campus of a school in Oxon Hill in Maryland during an alleged disagreement between two parties. A 32-year-old man died after being shot twice in the leg during a fight in the parking lot of a school in Philadelphia on the 31st of January. And just 7 days before that incident, a 16-year-old boy opened fire at Marshall County High School in Benton, Kentucky, killing 2 and injuring 18 others. So this latest incident in Florida, only one of many that the United States has had to grapple with. Perhaps the conversation on gun control is going to get revived, and there may be an outcome this time around.